So here's the thing with homemade meals. Eating them is great, but all the chopping and measuring and cleanup, not so much. With new one-pan assemble and bake meals from Blue Apron, you get all the flavor of homemade meals with a fraction of the work. Just assemble the pre-chopped ingredients, bake in the oven, and enjoy. Shop Assemble and Bake at BlueApron.com. Get 50% off your first 2 orders with code APRON50. Terms and conditions apply. Visit BlueApron.com/terms for more.
So, Paul, how's it going? United win again away at Hull. A storming comeback or a bit of good fortune?
Jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to watch United win away. Hey! 2 wins on the bounce for United. Yeah, a barnstorming classic Manchester United comeback against Hull. Well, okay, perhaps not. But nice to recover from that omni-shambles of defence and make some sort of progress up the league table. That's a lot of wins on the bounce now, right?
5 wins in a row for United in all competitions. Yeah, look, it's really important. Didn't we say last week how important it is United have a good Christmas programme? I think with United playing teams below them in the table until we go to Tottenham, although Tottenham may well be below us in the table now. It's really important that United racked up the points, and hopefully Ed Woodward has a good window and brings us a couple of midfielders. That would be a Christmas miracle. As for the pitch, what did we have? We had a very, very fine United victory over Hull, but first, victory over West Ham at Old Trafford. And in truth, a much better performance from United against West Ham than against Hull, I think. Pretty good all round. A very nice attacking display. Passed the ball really well, and we haven't said that very often this season about United against West Ham. In truth, West Ham allowed United time on the ball. It wasn't a typical Sam Allardyce team performance, I don't think. And lots and lots of positives all round, except for that dreadful piece of defending for the goal that West Ham scored.
Yeah, when Alex Butner came on and the West Ham fans started singing we're going to win 4-3, and it looked like it might happen for just a minute there. I don't think a man has ever played another man onside more effectively than that, have they?
Yeah, not on the same wavelength as the rest of his teammates, or humanity, I think, in Alex Butner's case. I mean, omnishambles was the word you used a little bit earlier. That describes Butner's defending on any day, but especially against West Ham.
But yeah, let's talk about the positives about that performance, because, I mean, apart from the Leverkusen game, or games, that was perhaps United's most effective display under Moyes, and you said, I think, during that game, well, we clearly know what the answer is here. We just have to make sure United play against only abject teams for the rest of the season, because a lot of our wins have come because the other team has played so poorly. But I think we also made West Ham look quite bad in that game. And, you know, I was in Christmas heaven because Danny Welbeck scored, and then him and Adnan linked up for Adnan's goal, and that was absolutely spectacular. And Ashley Young getting on the action, 2 in 2 it was at that point for Youngie, and another absolute blinder of a goal. Couldn't have hit that much better.
Well, quite, yeah. So, look, I think the key to United's performance against West Ham was passing the ball. I mean, it was amazing. We actually managed to put together some kind of rhythm in the passing, actually attempting to keep the ball. I mean, you know, I know I keep going on about this, but it is relevant because we'll come on to the whole game where the back two lumped it forward repeatedly. And that didn't happen against West Ham, and that was important. United had nearly 90% success rate in the passing, and we managed to keep the possession as a result. Over 60% possession. Created loads of chances, 21 chances, lots of shots on target. So, you know, these things do flow together. United played well, kept the ball, moved West Ham around. West Ham could have pressed United in the centre of midfield, didn't. I think moving to a 4-3-3 has helped United, or 4-5-1, I suppose. You know, Rooney is definitely playing effectively in midfield at the moment. And all round, just a much, much, much more positive performance from United. I think you're right, up with the Leverkusen performances.
Yeah, absolutely. And we should talk about Adnan's performance, I guess, because it attracted lots of different sorts of headlines. He did a bad dive. He definitely did do a bad dive. No question about that. Not for the penalty, when he was just fouled, and that was a penalty and it was ignored, and partly maybe because he went down a little theatrically and he's already got a bit of a problem with reputation. But he was also absolutely kicked all over the park in that game. But the one in the the one that everyone's talked about, the one he got booked for, was a proper kind of, pirouette, two-footed, leap, ballet dancer-esque. Gary Neville sort of defending him, saying he was anticipating a challenge that was coming, but he just wasn't. He just bought the foul, because you can get out of the way of a challenge that never comes without kind of swan diving onto the floor and looking pained, can't you?
Right, yeah. Look, it's becoming a little bit embarrassing, and it's only fair that after the criticism that has been levelled at Ashley Young, that the same criticism is levelled at Januzaj. He doesn't need to dive, even if he's getting fouled a lot, and he has done that several times. You're right to say he was just fouled for the penalty, but maybe his reputation is preceding him, and this is not a good thing if that's the case, is it? Because United are going to not get a penalty in a really big game, and it's going to cost them. Or maybe Januzaj will get a bit better at the art and buy a few penalties, like Ashley Young, who said not that long ago that it's the refs what give them, Your Honour, not me, which was the most ridiculous defence I've ever heard for diving. But there you go. So not good from Januzaj, but he is the most fouled player in the Premier League on a fouls per minute ratio by some distance, and it's because close control is so good, and he's got this great balance, so he drags players into a foul, doesn't he? But he just doesn't need to dive as a result. He's going to get the free kick anyway.
Yeah, and it's potentially actually quite dangerous because he is getting kicked all over the park. He needs referees to be on his side, because otherwise defenders will take liberties with him, and that's really a problem. I mean, you could see it in the game against Hull, that the referee was just not on Januzaj's side. Potentially, you could say that's quite poor refereeing or whatever, but it is something that he can also have a bit of a look at himself, and I'm sure Moyes will be harsh on him in that regard. And I wonder as well if the fact that he didn't start against Hull was partly to do with that dive and a bit of a slight disciplinary action there, although it could just be simple rotation, of course.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, the thing is, when you play a team with three at the back, like Hull play, you want some players hugging the touchline, don't you? And what United actually missed in some of the game against Hull is the quarterback to find those players. So I wasn't that surprised to see Januzaj on the bench. Maybe it was something to do with the diving and a word in his ear. Maybe it was also a couple of very direct players like Young and Valencia was right for the occasion too. That's the bad of Januzaj. I think he needs to cut that out. Hopefully it will come with some maturity. The good was an absolutely storming goal. I mean, the maturity of the player and the composure of the player at 18 to fake one way, cut inside and then finish in the manner that he did was storming, wasn't it?
Just absolutely spectacular, and he looks every inch a world beater, and he's only just getting started. And, anyone that looks at that player and thinks, oh yeah, this will be a flash in the pan, I just think that's crazy talk. I think he looks pure class, and it's funny, you can see the way the fans react to him, and alright, it's a very kind of catchy, singable song, but it's also got to do with the player, right? The fact that his name's been sung over and over and over again in his first few games at the club, it's pretty impressive, and it is because he's just electric. He's electric. In the Hull game, he changed everything when he came on. I hate to see Raphael get injured, because I do think he's one of our more important players, but that injury and then the subsequent substitution was what changed that game, because he just made Hull have to think on a completely different level. And his interplay with Welbeck in the West Ham game, it was just stunning. The little flicks and tricks and passes back and forth, and brilliant to see Danny score again, keeping up that run that he's on and just playing with so much confidence and quality. Wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, Welbeck had a good game against West Ham, a good goal. I mean, you've got to say the keeper's made a bit of a mistake there. It's very, very close to him. You'd be disappointed, I think, if you're a keeper not to save that one. But scoring goals, isn't he, Welbeck? And it's really important. We said the difference between Welbeck and being a great striker is those goals. If he gets 20 a season, there aren't going to be any doubts about his quality. Look, he's got everything there. He can hold the ball up, he can run into channels, his first touch is very good. Lots of awareness, the players around him can't finish for toffee. So this is the thing that's going to make a difference in his career. Very interesting, I think, comments from David Moyes this week, where he said about Danny Welbeck that he needs to stay behind at training and practice. A little bit complacent, the reaction from Welbeck, who says, I do enough training. And I was a little disappointed with that, actually, because I'd like to have seen Welbeck say, right, what, I'm going to listen to my manager. I will be practicing for an extra 15, 30 minutes after every training session.
Well, frankly, I was more disappointed with Moyes. After Welbeck, a player relatively short on confidence, finally building up some confidence, and Moyes says he has to act more like Wayne Rooney. Yeah, that well-known, professional, hard-working, disciplined footballer Wayne Rooney. Just a joke from Moyes, and Welbeck was right to say he did enough training. Moyes says, you should stay behind after training to extra 15 minutes. And funnily enough, Welbeck couldn't get through the game because he picked up a little niggle because Moyes had been running him too hard like he has with everyone else in the side. I'm team Danny on this one, man.
This is a different story. Look, if it was player X, not Danny Welbeck, I think you might have a slightly different opinion. Look, I'm not actually praising Moyes for doing this in public. I'm saying if the debate is going to be in public, I'm on the side of... if he's got a failing in his game, he needs to go practice, right? You know, there's plenty of players who've made a career for themselves that have not been brilliant, and plenty of players at United who've done that. Danny Welbeck has the opportunity to be a brilliant player. He doesn't score enough goals, you know? It's a major problem for him, and because of that, he's going to be played out of position a lot. So if practice is the thing that's going to make him a better striker, then he needs to go do that.
The flip side of that argument is that he's played 5 times in his preferred position in the last 5 games and scored 4 goals, so he is currently scoring enough goals.
Yeah, that's the best answer possible, isn't it? You know, as long as he keeps doing that. History tells us he won't, but, you know, hey, maybe history's changed. Maybe this is Danny's year.
No question about that. A really fun game, that West Ham game, really enjoyable, and it was nice to see Ashley Young score, because I don't want anyone to think that I'm some massive advocate of Ashley Young is brilliant or anything, but I do think he is better than he has been.
That's not what you tell me in private, Paul.
Yeah, it is.
Your little Ashley Young shrine that you've got.
AshleyYoung.tumblr.com. Tumblr, very appropriate. He's better than he's been showing. That's my only point about Ashley Young, and he's had a couple of decent games on the bounce. When he switched over to the right in the Hull game, he put in 2 really good crosses in a row, and of course scored a couple of crackers in the 2 previous games to that. So
he did, yeah. This is the frustrating thing. Ashley Young's pattern: dips a shoulder, cuts inside, overhits the cross. Right? Next time round, dips the shoulder, cuts inside, underhits the cross. You know, next time round, overhits it, repeat 10 times, smashes one in from 45 yards. Right? So the actual quality of the delivery from Ashley Young is horrendous. And yes, he put in 2 decent crosses from the right. He actually looked much better from the right against Hull, didn't he? You know, he actually began to look like a threat rather than someone who's just going to give the ball away. And one of them created a goal. One of them was also a good cross, you know? So there you go. I don't think Ashley Young will be anything other than pretty average, but, you know, he delivers sometimes. And a goal against Stoke and a cracking goal against West Ham was him delivering, and he didn't have a bad game against Hull. I mean, I was having a little bit of fun by suggesting he'd put in 150 odd crosses and they'd all failed, bar one. You know, sometimes, United fans, you don't have much humour, got to say.
There's a little bit of that, isn't there? The thing about the game against West Ham, and you were mentioning that the passing was really effective, it looked to be a really functional formation and system. Evans and Smalling had an excellent game, unlike against Hull when they had a somewhat problematic game, but they had a brilliant game against West Ham. A midfield of Cleverley, Jones and Rooney actually really looked effective, and Valencia had another decent game. Rafael adds so much to Valencia's game because, you know, we all know that Valencia's stops and knocks it out to the overlapping fullback, and if that's someone that can actually play a ball, that makes a huge difference, doesn't it? And Januzaj on the left, wonderful. So, you know, really just a very effective, functional, tactical system, and it relies on Rooney not demanding to be number 9 and or 10, right? He played at number 8, didn't he? And it definitely worked.
He's done that for a few games in a row. Definitely played there against West Ham, definitely played there against Hull. You know, he's basically playing in midfield at the moment. And it's been an important adjustment for United because of that area in central midfield, which is so weak, and it's helped players like Cleverley. I mean, Cleverley actually had a decent game against Hull. He got on the ball a fair amount, and sentimentality can take over here. Fletcher, I don't think, had a great game, but what do you expect? He hasn't started the game for a year, so, you know, no criticism really intended there. But Rooney's been really crucial, I think, to this little period. You know, he's played very deep. Welbeck playing up front is scoring some goals, and Rooney's knitting things together and giving United's midfield a bit more balance than it's had for some time.
Absolutely, and it's interesting because it's a system born out of necessity, right? It's a system born out of too many injuries to enable him to feel he can play a 2 in midfield and no Van Persie. So I remember saying on the podcast 12 months ago, or maybe even a bit longer than that if if we're going to actually play a 4-5-1 out of all of our strikers, the one that I would have up there is Welbeck, and that is because of the overall contribution he makes. He is so good at leading the line, you know, he's really good at playing up there on his own. But apart from in the last few games, there is this problem of goals, which is a significant problem. Rooney, of course, has been playing well and definitely worthy of praise, but my goodness, Moyes will praise Rooney when he's not worthy of praise. When he is worthy of praise, Moyes will say this, listen, right, okay. Do you know what I see more than anything in Rooney? I see leadership. I see someone who wants to take responsibility for the team. Rooney is not a boy anymore. He's one of the senior men. He's actually on the verge of being one of the great legends at the club. In the dressing room now, Rooney is one of those who is beginning to call the shots. I don't think I could hear a more terrifying paragraph from the Manchester United manager than that. One of the great legends, Ed. Bobby Charlton, Duncan Edwards, Ryan Giggs, Paul Scholes and Wayne Rooney.
What do they all have in common? They didn't put any transfer... Oh, no, wait, they did put some transfer requests in. Oh, dear. He's done his job, Moyes, right? He was an obsequious brown-noser and managed to polish up Rooney's ego to the point where Rooney's actually playing for United, you know? I've said I don't think Rooney will be the player that we once thought he would be, but he's putting in some very effective performances for United and getting the numbers, and he's a very important part of the team right now. Very important part of the team, and I think a lot of that's down to Moyes getting him fit. The hard running has done some players some good, and Moyes getting Rooney happy, you know. So I think that's over the top from Moyes. I don't think it's necessary. He's got now 150 league goals for United. What was that? 208 in all competitions for the club. He may well, if he signs a new contract, become the highest goal scorer ever in the history of Manchester United. I have to say, I think there are other qualities that go into being legend status. It's very subjective. Totally very, very subjective. You know, great player, great numbers, great attitude. Leadership is about taking responsibility. Moyes is right about that. Responsibility is not chucking in a transfer request when it's not going your way.
No, absolutely. And I'm not sure his general behaviour warrants the title of leadership. I think last season he was fundamentally ill-disciplined. You know, he was not looking after his professional responsibilities. He allowed himself to be unfit. You know, none of this is good. Thanks to @TusharMUFC for sending a nice snapshot of that quote and asking us to have a chat about it on that podcast. I mean, the thing about him calling the shots in the dressing room is, you know, I mean, he's a senior player at United and he's one of the best players at United, maybe even the best. So it's obvious that he would have a responsibility in the dressing room in that regard. And I suppose, in a way, it might just be time to let the frustration of Moyes' obsequiousness pass and just embrace the reality of the situation, which is that Rooney is vitally important to United. Moyes is doing everything he can to keep him at the club, and it does look like, as you say, he's done his job in that regard.
Well, yes.
But yeah, we'll see, right? We'll see.
That's fine, and you can judge Rooney on his merits right now, and we can, you know, aside from the odd quip, which is necessary on a programme of this nature, it's fine to forget the transfer requests, the multiple transfer requests, and the attempts to join Manchester City and then Chelsea. We can forget that, of course. You know, we don't need to bring this up again, the fact that he was desperate to join two of United's biggest rivals. But when you talk about legendary status, you are asking for a retrospective.
Yes,
right?
you are.
And I'm afraid that mixes him from that list for me. Others will have a different opinion. Anyway, look, we were talking about midfielders. One curiosity, of course, Ravel Morrison back at Old Trafford in that West Ham game. Nice to see him on the pitch and actually playing for a Premier League team. And he didn't have a great game. You know, in truth, he was actually very deep. He's most effective, you know, in and around the strikers, isn't he? You know, in that kind of number 10 position. And it's a shame. In many ways, I'd like to have seen him had a very good game. He's had some very good games for West Ham this season. He's been one of their better players in what is a pretty disappointing campaign for the Hammers. And I just thought it just came to me that I thought there was a contrast between the new star at United, in Adnan Januzaj, and maybe Ravel was the last player we got so excited about as a 18-year-old. And it didn't work out for him at United for all the reasons we've spoken about before, but it seems to be working out for him at West Ham.
Yeah, it's lovely. I mean, it was lovely. It's lovely that that's happening, and also it was lovely that Welbeck and Januzaj were scoring the goals. So it was like, you know, our young players that have stayed at United were the ones making the headlines. I think Scott from the Republic of Mancunia said something along those lines, that it's nice to see those players making the headlines, not Morrison. But it is also wonderful that he's making a career, and I think, everybody knows that he's a big old red, isn't he, Ravel? And maybe one day it would be nice to see him back, but there's all sorts of problems with him coming back to Manchester. So, it's good that he's clearly got his head down and he's clearly working hard, because Allardyce is not just going to keep him in the side if he's not, is he?
Well, no, he's in the side on merit. And Allardyce said earlier this week that he didn't think he was a first-team player, and that's why they sent him away to Birmingham. And somehow Birmingham and Lee Clark, the manager there, have managed to turn the guy around, and he's matured in that spell away from West Ham, and he's come back and forced his way into the West Ham team, had a very good pre-season, and has had a pretty good campaign ever since. Scored a few goals, made a few goals, scored that blinder at Tottenham. He's got the talent. The way he moves across the pitch is as classy as ever, isn't it? He just seems to glide. He's so easy on the ball, and I think as he grows, he's going to be more of an influence. He definitely didn't have a good game at Old Trafford. I'm sure there'll be others.
Yeah, absolutely. So, on to Hull then, and the first 10 minutes of that were the worst kind of, like the kind of Christmas where the family's at each other's throats and everyone's shouting and all the roast potatoes are burned and the sprouts are overcooked. It was really just everything that could go wrong went wrong. The first goal, not a corner, but you could see why the linesman was confused by that, because it's hard to imagine that the winger would have actually kicked the ball in that direction. And then, Rooney lost his man, pretty poor, but it's one of those things. But the second goal, I love Johnny Evans, and this does not change anything that I think about him, but that's the mistake that you say he's always got in him, right?
Well, that's it. He keeps making those mistakes that he's always got in him, and that's what keeps Evans away from being a really top defender. That was 2 mistakes in one. It was unbelievable. A horrendous attempted clearance and then a shank into his own net. On the corner, I don't think that's acceptable. I don't think we can brush that off as the linesman wouldn't have believed that the attacker could have shanked it like that, because he couldn't have seen that. He couldn't have seen the ball come off the United player, because it wasn't anywhere near the United player. He's just guessed, and that's really poor assistant refereeing, isn't it? So United cheated on that one by some terrible officials, but after that the defending just horrendous. Smalling and Rooney losing their man, and that is Smalling's man because he's playing on the right side of a zonal system there, and then Johnny Evans with a hack away and then the smash into his own net. Oh, it wasn't even smash really, more of a dribble. Very, very poor all round for both goals, I think.
Yeah, woeful. And at that point you had the fear. Well, I had the fear, certainly. But then it all sort of turned round, and it was not a barnstorming 3-2 comeback, partly because we got back to 2-2 so very, very quickly. But still, really, is that the first time Moyes it's certainly the first time he's come back from 2-0, and that's something we want in the DNA of Manchester United. Funnily enough, Sir Alex Ferguson, not a million miles away from sat right in the dugout. He was 2 seats away from the United coaching staff, wearing a big United coat. It was a bit dodgy, that was.
It was a little bit. You know what? He's been coming to more and more games and getting lower and lower down in the stadium. Right, it's a pattern. He wasn't there at first, then he was right at the back in a box somewhere, then he moved a couple of rows down, and he was in a suit. Now he's putting on the tracky suit, and he's just behind the dugout. Next time he's doing a John Terry, right? He's going to be in the technical area, pointing with Moyes, the actual manager. Interesting, this one, isn't it? Do you think he hasn't quite let go?
Maybe, possibly, he hasn't quite let go. There's a funny moment when he collected his award at the Sports Personality of the Year, where he went, "I've been busy. Don't think I'm not doing anything in retirement." It's like, Alex, nobody said anything. You just got really super defensive when nobody was attacking you at all. He's understandably finding the adjustment a little bit challenging.
Well, he said he wanted to, tour the cities of the world, go to some great sporting and cultural events. I don't know how he's managing to do that with being at 2 games a week with United.
Well, he's been to loads of cities. He's been to Hull. He's going to go to Norwich next week, see the cathedral, catch a game. Yeah, bless him. It was good. It is Moyes' team, and it was good to see that Moyes' team has the capacity to come back as well. Very attacking substitutions. At 2-0 down when Rafael got injured, it was pretty bold to put Valencia at right back and play Adnan. But you say that Johnny Evans has got a mistake in him. That's not every single game. Valencia is pretty much a goal a game at right back. We were lucky to get away with him not conceding his standard 1 in that game. He did manage to get himself foolishly sent off, though, right at the end.
He really did. Look, the frustration I had with that game was, apart from United's defending, was the fact that Evans and Smalling lumped it long all the time. 7 long balls from Smalling, aimless, just punted into the channel. And He's got them playing quite wide, David Moyes, so pushes the fullbacks up and the two central defenders split when United have the ball and attacking, and then they just thump it long. It's a waste. It's a total and utter waste, and United did that for about the first 45 minutes at least, and then it got better. I think Januzaj really helps because the realisation is you can't just bang it long to him. He doesn't play in a natural winger's position. I think if you look at the heat map of Januzaj's performance, it's going to be very central. He was almost an auxiliary striker for the time he was on the pitch, and I think it really does help because they have to play it into his feet, they have to play it through midfield. But for a lot of the time, Smalling in particular, and it's not becoming of a Manchester United player, that really. Still, there was some good stuff from United attacking-wise. Absolutely blinding goal from Rooney after a bit of a miscontrol from your man Welbs.
No, the defender swings his leg round Welbeck and catches the ball. That's what takes it into Rooney's path.
Oh dear.
That's true, it's what happened. I'm not being overly defensive of Danny. That is literally what happened.
If I said Danny Welbeck was black, you'd tell me he was white,
No, he's definitely
black. Anyway, fine finish from Rooney. It reminded me of that goal against Newcastle many moons ago. Not as good as that goal against Newcastle because the ball was coming out of the air, then here a little touch and then a thump into the back of the net.
Yeah, wonderful. The reason I know that Danny didn't miscontrol it is because I was trying to claim credit for the layoff for the goal. That's Danny, a brilliant assist from Welbeck there. I was joking, obviously. But no, it wasn't even an assist from Welbeck. But yeah, wonderful strike from Rooney. Vintage Rooney, that, wasn't it? You don't see it all that often. So it was brilliant to see and very timely as well. And then another red with the winner. This time an ex-red, James Chester, scoring at both ends. And he went pretty red after that. A really unfortunate own goal.
Well, not unfortunate, it was a thumping header. What I don't get is what's he trying to do there? He wasn't trying to head it over his own bar, was he? He was under some pressure from Rooney, who was climbing all over him. Yes. Bizarre header. But fine finish from the lad, Agent Chester. Nice stuff. There's a few ex-reds in and around the Hull team. McShane didn't play today. Corey Evans was at Hull, went on to Blackburn earlier this season. Chester, a couple of others as well who've slipped my mind. In any case, and obviously Steve Bruce, the world's ugliest man.
Oh, I love him though. I really love him. He does also give the best post-match interviews of any manager in the league. He's genuinely a funny man, Steve Bruce. And
Steve Bruce, football hipster.
He doesn't take himself too seriously either, right? That's the... I don't know, I like Steve Bruce a lot.
When you look like that, you can't.
Oh, so mean.
It's like something out of Star Wars, isn't he? In Jabba the Hutt's lair, and just that someone's bashed his face in with a pole as well.
But the thing is, he bashed his own face in the pursuit of trophies for Manchester United, so, let's cut him some slack.
Fell out the ugly tree and hit every branch on the way down.
He just hit the back of loads of strikers' heads with fantastic headers, and Alex Bruce headbutting the post, trying to make his nose more like his dad's in that game.
That's right, yeah.
We won, though, and I didn't think we were going to, and that was really nice. And it was a problem. I want to just touch on Smalling briefly, because it's not really the player's fault, right? Presumably he's not doing that because he wants to do that. He's doing that because that's the game he's been told to play, right? That's not Smalling's natural game by any stretch of the imagination. He's really tidy on the ball.
Well, he's tidy and safe. I mean, I wouldn't say he's the most graceful in possession for United. Evans much better. Look, some of this is Smalling's limitation. He's just not got the imagination sometimes to not do that. But you've got to wonder whether it is a tactic. United are trying to get the ball into the right-hand channel very quickly.
It's not a tactic I would like to see being United's default tactic by any means. But I think there's something interesting about the fact it's done as part of an overall tactical flexibility, right? I mean, it's not like we do that every game. The game just before, we had 90% pass completion, really short, tidy, effective passing. And I'm sure Moyes was worried that Fletcher in midfield, because it's lovely to see him back and all, and kind of a miracle to see him back, but not back out of choice, back out of desperation. Really limited options. Jones injured, Fellaini injured, Carrick injured, although he did come back on. Talking of miracles, Moyes in between the two games saying, this is the time of year when miracles happen. No, he said miracles always happen at this time of year. I'm like, do they? Do they really? In a way, it's just maybe it was horses for courses sort of thing. He felt that under those circumstances, we actually kind of were best served by bypassing midfield and just hoofing it along to the big man on the right wing.
Well, look, part of the reason when you play three at the back and two wing-backs, if the wing-backs are out of position or far forward, there's a gap in the channel, and of course United exploited that in the first half, particularly with Valencia getting a lot on the ball. Hull changed tactics around the second half and tried to close that gap down, but I don't think that's actually naturally the way that you need to do it. You know, the answer when playing against that system is to switch from left to right and right to left quickly. It doesn't mean you have to go from back to front quickly, but anyway, look, you know, I think it is a ploy. I think it's a waste, and I don't think it's how United should be playing, but that's just me. And obviously I'm a bit soft or something, because I think United should be playing nice, flowing, pretty, attacking football. I think all those things can go together, and it doesn't mean just banging it long and it looking a bit aimless.
Talking of United, being a United fan and thinking United should play a certain way, I've heard it on good authority, Ed, that you might not even actually be a United fan.
Yeah, apparently that's what people keep telling me. You know, the humorless butts that they are.
The idea that saying negative things about a club that's behaving so abysmally in so many ways is somehow not being a fan of Man United is one of the most inane, paradoxical, nonsensical, rubbish ideas I can imagine. It's like, it's just mental. It's mental. But anyway, good luck to all concerned.
Yeah, talking of inane.
Yeah.
Your opinions on at Michael Owen.
Oh, bless him. And his boring socks. Today, beating all previous boring tweet records. I've tweeted some boring stuff in my time, but he said, frustrating that... Hold on, just give me 2 seconds. No, I'm never going to be able to find it in time. He said essentially, frustrating that the front screen takes longer to de-ice than the back screen, even though only the front screen's the one you really need.
I know. I mean, it's almost like a parody account. You know, if you were going to set up a parody account of Michael Owen, it would be, put on 2 socks today. One was a lighter shade of grey than the other.
Yeah, it's...
I might start that one up.
I don't think you need to. That's the thing. It's like there is no need for a boring Michael Owen parody account because he runs it himself. I think he's doing it for a bet.
Probably one of his sponsors, yeah, who's always talking about. Yes, footballers and Twitter. Talking of another footballer on Twitter, Rio Ferdinand, not even in the matchday squad for Manchester United against Hull, and not injured either.
Yeah, being considered for retirement, right? That's the story going around today.
I think that consideration has been fully considered, and he's being retired, yeah. Also known as being shot if you're a horse. Talking to Michael Owen.
I think Rio should leave in January and go and play 6 months somewhere for fun, I think, because I think he's going to have a miserable time. I think that last game, we said, I can't remember who it was against now, but I remember saying at the time that looked like the Gary Neville against West Brom moment to me, and it looks like it really was. And Rio, not quite the same sort of personality, and I'm sure he's still in pretty good physical nick, and I'm sure he could do an excellent job for a lot of teams at a lot of different levels, but unless something dramatically changes, it doesn't look like Man United's going to be the place for him, does it?
No, he's not going to get another contract. I wonder whether he'll like to play one more season before he actually retires. I mean, loads of talk in the past of him going out to the States. I suppose he could do that, or maybe he'll just concentrate on his media empire. Of course, lots of talk of Rio being the mole in the United dressing room and leaking out the team sheet to at Disco Mirror, who got banned for getting United's team sheet right consistently. Be interesting if it was Rio, him being the media type. A few cruel suggestions on Twitter. I thought, what should be the punishment for Rio if it was him? Drop him from the team, ban him, out him, name and shame, change his squad number.
That is the unkindest cut of all. I have to say, my Football Manager 2014 Man United save, I did change Rio Ferdinand's squad number pretty early on in my game, and then I gave Adnan the number 7 shirt, obviously.
I'm too busy. I don't get to play Football Manager anymore, which is a real shame.
Yeah, it's really good this year on a sort of vaguely unrelated but somewhat Christmassy note. Football Manager 14, highly recommended if you...
Join at Christmas, Paul. Did you get any nice Christmas presents?
Yeah, I did, from you mostly. I'm sure that's not what you were leading into me talking about, but yeah, I got a nice Against Modern...
Talk about me and how wonderful I am. Go on.
I got a nice Against Modern Football t-shirt from you and a lovely Rosso Banco Nero hat, which is quite good because it sort of doubled as a Santa Claus hat yesterday. But no, yeah, really nice, thank you very much. And I got a board game and that's about it, but it was good. Really, really nice Christmas. What about you, Ed? Did you?
No, not really.
Okay.
No, it's terrible.
Fair enough.
Awful, miserable gets a lot of you. Yeah. No, a few nice things, including a programme from Sir Alex's last game, which I shall cherish and wonder at. Maybe I'll even frame it.
Talking of presents, by the way, we have got a present to give away to the lovely listeners of the Rantcast. Mark J. Payne, at Mark J. Payne on Twitter, is a columnist for ESPN and has published a collection of columns in a book called Fergie's Last Stand, and it's all his columns from last season, and it's actually a really, really, really fantastic read. He was kind enough to send me a copy, and even though it's not that long ago, it still feels incredibly nostalgic to read it, and it has been a very transformational 12 months, and going back on looking on these columns really highlights that fact. It's a lovely prose style that Mark's got, and it's a really easy read, and he's been very good about not cutting out the things that look crazy in hindsight. So yeah, lovely stuff, and we've got one of those to give away, and I think basically the question for winning that prize, use the hashtag Rantcast and just tell us why you deserve that book, and the funniest stroke most interesting will get it. We've got to go UK delivery only, I'm afraid, just because of the cost of delivering that abroad and Mark sending it himself. So yeah, sorry about that, international listeners. We will definitely have a competition that international listeners are eligible for pretty soon.
Okay, very good. Nice competition there. Best of luck to all of you that enter. So, on to the coming week then, and United are playing Norwich City on Sunday, I believe. This time of year, it's hard to remember what day it is, isn't it? But quick turnaround and away at Norwich.
Yeah, I believe it's Saturday, just because somebody was talking about how it's in a couple of days' time. So yeah, Saturday.
Wow, Saturday.
Really, really quick turnaround of fixtures. The 28th of December, we play against Norwich, and it's at Norwich, so it's a long travel for the travelling Reds. But I'm sure there'll be lots of them, and there'll be an excellent voice. I mean, United are pretty much decimated by injuries, assuming Rafael won't be fit. Valencia is out, Jones is out. There is a real problem in the centre of defence, and I wonder if we'll see the return of Nemanja Vidic in this one.
Quite possible, yeah. I mean, he was on the bench, so I guess he is fit and raring to go. Maybe Vidic comes in, maybe Smalling goes to right back. Not always the best there, but Fabio, of course, was on the bench, fresh from shagging one of David Moyes' daughters. Not true, everyone, not true. So he's an option too. I'm sure there'll be a shuffle around, such a tight turnaround, and there are so many injuries. Moyes has to use the whole squad. But look, Norwich pretty rubbish. United on a roll. You should be going there with plenty of confidence.
I mean, yeah, I think we've still got a lot of attacking talent available to us, haven't we? But I assume that Carrick might start, given the nature of the injuries around the place, and it might be a bit too soon for him. It could be. I just think it's not going to be a breeze, this game. I mean, it is a good job that it is only Norwich, because they really are not very good, but they're better at home than they are away, I think. And, the extent to which our injury situation is at the moment, I don't think there's any team in the league that would be completely untroubled by.
No, look, sure. Norwich's essential problem is they don't score any goals and they let too many in, which is a bit of a problem when you're a football team. So, obviously, Van Wolfswinkel out for a long time and wasn't scoring goals anyway. Leroy Fer, it wasn't the best purchase, I don't think, and a lot of people are very surprised by that one. They're not playing particularly good football, look quite fragile, dragged into the relegation zone. So, look, this has a United victory written all over it, even with so many injuries. Is it too soon for Carrick to come back? Well, we'll see. It just depends how fit he really is. He's certainly back before many people thought he'd be back, right? So is he being rushed back because we're desperate, or did he just heal nice and quickly? We'll find out if he plays and hobbles off injured again. We'll know the answer to that one, won't we? But look, I think United should go there in real confidence. At the end of the whole game, United just 5 points out of the Champions League zone. Well, 5 points off the lead, which is a major turnaround, and this is the reason why this Christmas period was so important for getting the win now at Norwich, leading into the New Year's Day clash with Tottenham, which will be a challenging game, of course. It's really, really important, and then January is difficult, really difficult, because there are so many matches in there with the cup games as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the lineup against Norwich is going to be De Gea, Smalling, Evans, Vidic and Evra, and then in midfield Carrick and Cleverley and Rooney, and then Januzaj and Young on either flank and Welbeck up front. That is my predicted lineup for that game, assuming there's no injuries in training between now and then and we don't hear about any post-match stuff. But I think that's going to be the lineup, and I think it's going to be pretty similar against Tottenham. Tottenham in all sorts. I mean, we don't know what the scores are, the Boxing Day scores yet, because we're recording this while those games are going on. But they're in all sorts of disarray, taken over by Tim Sherwood in one of the oddest appointments I can remember in football ever, really. Goodness knows what's happening at Tottenham. Can't be much fun to be a Spurs fan at the moment.
Yeah, well, look, the list of managers who have been appointed as Premier League manager with no experience beforehand of being a manager, the best of that list, by far, the most successful is Steve McLaren, right? So it tells you how difficult that job is for a brand new manager. I think he's an interim. I know they gave him an 18-month contract, but that's out of respect for his position as a former Tottenham player and the fact that he's done some good job as a technical director, whatever that actually means, at Spurs. He's a coach. I think he'll be given 6 months and then a big name manager will come in the summer.
Yeah, I think you might be right. I mean, Tottenham have a lot of excellent players who are struggling to gel. This might all sound ridiculous because they might have battered whoever it is they're playing right now, and of course they've got another game as well ahead of their game against us, and they won't want to come to Old Trafford, right? It's all very well for us to talk about it being a difficult game, but it's a worse game for them than it is for us, for sure, that fixture. And we do well against Tottenham, right? I mean, last season we lost at Old Trafford to them in one of the sort of most interesting games of last season when
Rio Ferdinand got prison raped by Gareth Bale. That's not going to happen this time round for two reasons that neither of them will be playing. It's a new start, for Tottenham. Sherwood is, quite clearly going to play a much more basic team. He's not going to try any fancy tactics here. I mean, you saw that in his first match against West Ham in the League Cup, put out a straight 4-4-2. No surprises anywhere there. And it seems like that's going to be Tottenham from here till the end of the season. Maybe that'll work for them. Certainly the players hadn't adapted to AVB's desire to have them playing with a very high line and a pressing game and a short passing game with two wide players and the strikers very split. He had a certain tactical methodology to what he wanted Tottenham to play. The players didn't do that. Maybe they'll play a straight 4-4-2 and respond to that. They should still, give United a decent game, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we do predictions, I feel it would be remiss at this most wonderful specialist time of the year not to do a few questions from the fine people of Twitter. At Neil_Andrew says, what would you have in your Boxing Day sandwich? I didn't have a sandwich today. I just ate more leftovers. I've eaten so many leftovers in the last 24 hours. It's been glorious. Have you had a Boxing Day sandwich? You're in America, right? Right, as we record this. Is it all weird being there at Christmas time? Is it all like, I don't know, like in a movie or something? Have they left you home alone? Is your home currently being attacked by burglars and you have to defend yourself in increasingly madcap ways?
Not quite. I am in the States, of course. Here it's not Christmas. It is the holiday season, the festive period. Not allowed to talk about Christmas. It winds up the Republicans. Something Ross on that one. Quite amusing, really. But yes, I'm in Seattle at the moment on the West Coast, and rather grey, but decently Christmassy. Lots and lots of lights everywhere. And my sandwich. Haven't had a Boxing Day sandwich because actually we're doing Christmas dinner on Saturday.
Okay, right. It's all very...
It just works out like that.
It's very confusing.
Very confusing.
All right, Marco Reus in January, 30 million buyout clause worth a punt, asks Commander Chode.
Yes, I'm stroking myself just at the thought of that.
Fair to say you're a fan of Marco Reus, isn't it, Ed?
I think he's a very, very good player. Actually, look, my caveat on this one is, aside from him being a very, very good player, he's going to be key to Germany's World Cup chances, I think, because he's going to be one of the key attacking players. I just wonder how United would use him, given how Moyes has set up his team. Rooney is undroppable, which means that Reus will play not in the two in central midfield, he'll play on the left wing, which is sometimes where he plays at club level anyway, and he can certainly do a very good job there. He's a player who can use both feet, scores a lot of goals, but I just like him in a classic number 10 role. I think he's a very, very creative player. He's able to play not just through the transition, but in a more classic number 10 role. Just give him the ball and he'll play like a playmaker. In any case, so look, that's my only caveat. I think if he was available, United and United prepared to spend money, he'd be a very good acquisition. I'm not necessarily sure it's the first thing we need, given that there are a lot of attacking players at United. He would certainly be an upgrade on some players in the squad, let's put it like that. And he's been clearly Borussia's best player this season in what has been a pretty difficult season for them.
We've tried to avoid this subject, I think, quite often, but this is the last podcast before the January transfer window opens. I have to say, I quite deliberately don't pay attention to transfer rumours, so I'm very poorly placed to discuss this. But is there anything on the horizon that's realistic? Do you think we will be bringing in anyone that would be considered a major signing in January? Is anyone going to leave? What are your thoughts on the transfer window in general, Ed?
I'd be really surprised if Moyes let anyone leave. I mean, maybe Butner will go because he's the most disposable of United's players, although, of course, that would leave United short of left-back, so it really depends on whether United manage to get in another player there. I can't believe that it'll be Baines. Have to overpay too much there. Everton aren't interested in selling, so maybe they'll get a loan in to cover for Butner, who may go permanently or on loan. Anderson, I suppose, is available. He can't get anywhere near the team at the moment, so it wouldn't exactly be a loss if he went. As for incoming, the rumours about United's upcoming bid for Koke are very strong from numerous sources. It looks like it's going to happen. I would assume that United have done the deal, if it is to happen, with Atletico Madrid already and won't just be faxing through a blind offer. Maybe we've learned something from the last transfer market. I like Koke. He's been a very, very good player for Madrid this season. I mean, Madrid, Atletico are a pretty robust side. You know, they're a little more functional than Real and Barcelona, and he's probably the key creative player in midfield, and he's quite comfortable in a midfield 2 as an attacking player or a midfield 3 as the attacking player. You know, he'd be a very good purchase. Very young player, just made the Spain squad, might go to the World Cup. You know, it's not guaranteed, but he's been pretty influential for Atletico this season, so it'd perhaps be a surprise if he doesn't now. He was in the under-21 squad, which won the Euros for the Spain under-21 side, also in the Spain Olympic side a couple of years ago. Came third, I think, if I remember that correctly. So he's a very, very good player. 30 million's probably too much for him. But at this stage, to get in an exciting young talent, it doesn't really matter what the cost is, does it? If United really do have some money to spend, and there's a team out there prepared to sell, which would seem a little unusual given Atletico chasing La Liga title, then, you know, hey, go for it.
I mean, they're still in the Champions League. They're really in the running for the league title for the first time in a good few years. Do you really think it's realistic that he'll come in January?
It seems unrealistic to me, but the rumours are very, very, very strong, aren't they?
Right, okay. Anyone else then on the genuinely likely acquisition shopping list?
I don't think so. I mean, there's been talk of Guerin. I think I spoke about him already. I mean, he's more of a functional sort of box-to-box type midfielder. All right, but I think that's short-termism if he comes. You know, I don't think he's the answer to turning United from the current United into Premier League winners and European champions. If that's our goal, I think he would be a decent squad player. He'd certainly get more game time under Moyes because he's a Moyes-type player than Anderson, for example.
Okay, and one question which will allow us to be nice about Wayne Rooney for a change. At Ivar Raun says, Rooney on 150 league goals for United, which is his best, and I'm going to pick one that I witnessed with my own eyes, because there's not too many of those 150 that I was fortunate enough to see in person, but the goal against Newcastle all those years ago.
He scored some blinders, including a couple of fantastic chips, but the goal against Newcastle is the best one for me. I mean, it's come so high in the air, and to hit it so cleanly and with that kind of power, just an incredible strike.
I always say this when we talk about that goal, but you turned to me at that moment and said he just hit that with pure anger. I thought it was an extremely accurate description of that goal. You say he's scored a couple of good chips, but they have been erased by how many times he's tried to score a chip since. And of course we can't talk about the great Rooney goals of all time without talking about the overhead kick against City, which was quite something.
That was quite something. He's still a fat scouse bastard, though, isn't he? He put in 2 transfer requests.
Yeah, boo. They were saying a boo-knee.
Well, it might be a fine goal, but old pube head, yeah, really is a bit of a git, isn't he?
So mean. All right, then, let's do predictions. I predict you're going to say mean things about Wayne Rooney next week, and that we're going to beat Norwich City 2-1 and beat Tottenham. No, draw with Tottenham 1-1. There you go, that's my predictions.
I predict a riot of goals for Manchester United at Norwich. 2-0 winners at Norwich. Let's be bold and say United will beat Spurs as well. I said it's really important this Christmas period. I think United players have got it. I think they're putting in the fight for Moyes. This is the key difference, I think, right now. I know we're playing some crap, but they are fighting for their manager for the first time this season, so I think a 3-2 victory against Tottenham, and we'll be in the running come the new year. And
this turnaround all started when Patrice Evra did that pre-match interview where he talked about United's winning mentality. It's interesting because Moyes has completely changed his language around Evra. He recognised Evra's role in the dressing room, I think, sometime around then, and they have flicked a switch, haven't they? It hasn't always been super pretty, but, it hasn't been super pretty for years, has it? And that's a lot of wins on the bounce. And if we can manage 2 wins in the next 2 games, everything looks a lot different. I think this is a run that you would expect to come to an end at some point, and I would not be shocked if Tottenham was the point at which that comes to an end, but here's hoping it doesn't, and the Reds go marching on.
Well, yeah, look, and the other thing about United playing a lot of average sides over this period is that a lot of the other top teams are playing each other. Liverpool, City, Arsenal just played Chelsea recently. I think Liverpool and Arsenal played, don't they? So they all take points off each other, and United are going to get back in it. January and February is tough. Right, there's a lot of games. We play some key rivals. Of course, that's a double-sided coin, that one, isn't it? Play key rivals, and it's an opportunity actually to close the gap as well as for it to be widened. I think there's a lot of positives right at the moment. United can really seize this momentum by being bold in the transfer market. It is needed. There are key gaps in the squad. There's a lot of dead wood in there. It's not easy in the middle of a season. Maybe it means United, if it's the right player, have to sign a player for a premium. Maybe they're already cup-tied in Europe. Frankly, United are not going to win this European Cup anyway. A lot of teams that are better than United in Europe right now. So I don't think it would be a terrible, terrible mistake for United to go and spunk 30 million on a couple of midfielders. We'd all like to see that, and it could really transform United's campaign.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's hoping that happens. So we won't do another podcast in 2013. Thank you to everyone that's been with us through the year or joined us this year. It's been a real pleasure, and we're going to keep doing this in 2014. Have a lovely New Year's Eve, and wish you and your families and loved ones in general a really happy, healthy and peaceful 2014.
Yeah, that's a bit jolly, isn't it? Sod off, all of you. Now, Happy New Year. Have a great and prosperous 2014. Here's to many more United victories. Come on, you Reds.
Come on, you Reds.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.